Hello and welcome back, my friends, to another episode of Lynch Paints, where today we're going to be diving into the grim dark, the Horus Heresy, as the 3rd edition is right round the corner. So I thought, let's have a go at painting some legions. And we're going to start today with one of my all-time favourites, the Thousand Suns. Now, before we dive in, I'd just like to mention that I do have a new Discord server, so there'll be links down in the description below. Check it out. You can have a little chat with me and hopefully some others down there as well. That'd be fantastic. And if you're new, welcome aboard. Subscribe button down below. Just click that before we continue. It'll take 2 seconds of your time and it'll make me very, very happy. And of course, if you enjoy the video, then give it a like and comment and do all that usual YouTube stuff. So with all that nonsense out of the way, let's grab our paintbrushes and our shovels for all the sand as we explore the pyramids, and let's dive straight into it. But of course, before we get started, as per usual, we're going to need a selection of paints, and these are all the ones I've used in this video today, alongside which we're going to need a big, chunky, nice, fluffy fluff brush, a nice, big, medium size basing brush, a medium fine brush, medium fine? Yeah, you know, it's not quite medium, it's not quite fine, it's in between, and of course, our teeny weeny, teeny tiny brush, all of those teeny and tiny places. Alright, so our first step is to give our model a good old black acrylic primer. Then we're going to grab our Iron Warriors silver, or that kind of like equivalent dark silver, a nice fluffy brush. And then we're just going to do a bit of a heavy dry brush going over the top. So it's going to remove the majority and work it into the bristles off on a piece of tissue paper or whatever you have to hand. Hello, cat. And then we're just going to do a bit of a nice heavy dry brush just going over the top of this miniature. If there are any gaps that you can't quite reach with your bigger brush, then just grab a slightly smaller brush and just do the same thing. So mainly just on this kind of chest section, it's kind of a few the back there, and try and give a good coverage. Now you can use I think Citadel do like a dark silver metal can, spray can. You can use that to base your miniatures. However, then later on you'll have to go back over with something like a null oil or something like that, or some black oil paints just to get back into the recesses, which I think just adds kind of another step onto it. Whereas for me, it's just easier just to spray the model black, give it a good heavy dry brush, and go from there. But the option is there if you would like. So we are then ditch that in there. We're then going to grab a lighter silver this time. So we've got this Rune Fang steel. So I'm going to close the lid off on there, and you don't have to rinse out your brush from previously. You can just kind of wipe it off, try and get rid of the majority of the previous colour, because it's going from quite dark silver to very light silver. It doesn't matter if there's some of this still left on your brush. So again, same as before, take some of that off, work it into the bristles, wipe the majority off, and then we're just going to go over the top. We're going to be focusing mainly on the raised surfaces. It's all raised surfaces, you know what I mean? The kind of the lighter shades where the light is going to be most concentrated on. So top of the shoulder pads, obviously the top of the helmet, bit of the chest plate if I can get into there as well, and that sort of thing. Just if you're ever stuck, have a little look at your lamp light or sort of bedroom light, whatever light source that you're using to paint by, and wherever that's going to be hitting the most, that's where you want to try and focus this colour on. So our next step, we are then going to take some of this layman medium onto a nice, it's a bigger brush, lob a little bit of that just into, if you've got like on a wet palette, that's fine, or onto like a spare base like I'm using here. Just going to kind of lob a little bit in, And this is where the sort of experiment is going to take place. So I had this idea that if I use this stuff with something like Flesh Terror's red, so it's a nice sort of deeper red, so that way when it kind of settles into the recesses it's going to be a bit of a dark red. It's going to give us more of a tonal shift, whereas using one of the lighter red contrast paints might not. So dab a little bit into there, and using the medium, this is going to thin it down without using water, which you can use if you want, but the downside is that it will dry out quicker, and in this heat that we're experiencing in the UK, it's going to be a bit of a no-no. So the plan is that we're just going to pop this over the armor panels, and then with the medium, it's going to thin our contrast down enough to show the metallics underneath. So that should give us our really lovely metallic red. I say should, because this is something that I've had in my mind, and we all know that it may sound pretty good in our heads, but it might not work out on in practice, sort of thing. So it's going to go ahead, pop this all over. It's going to save this shoulder pad here to paint white later on, and I may indeed use the medium as well just to thin it down so it's more like a metallic-y white, and we'll see where we go. So while the red is drying, I figured may as well have a little crack at doing the shoulder pad. So I mixed a blob and a bit of the medium with a good blob and a bit of the white scar. I know, very, very technical, but just have a little play around with. It's going to just apply this on here, and I will do it on the face grill, but once the red is dry, because I don't want that to kind of overspin and leak into it and cause all kinds of issues. So we're going to just let this one dry, and it's looking all right. I mean, I did go over this section here, just where it was pooling a little bit a second time, and it does look a lot better than the first coat. So we may need to do 2 coats of this, but we'll see how it looks when it dries, and we will take it from there. So now that we've given it a bit of time to dry, the white hadn't really turned out very well. It's quite chalky looking. So I'm just going to go over that just flat, just plainly. But the red is looking pretty good. Now, again, so drawing back to this point here where I went over a second time, so that's just water. It's a lot more like what I want to try and achieve than the rest. So perhaps I added in a little bit too much of the medium, but you can still see a lot of the metallic showing through, which is fantastic. So it depends on what sort of look that you want your Thousand Suns, whether you want them to look a little bit more, I was going to say sun bleached, or kind of more worn, then adding more of the medium in with your contrast mixture is going to make it look a lot better. But if you're looking for that kind of really rich sort of metallic cherry red, then I think that we're going to have to go over it a second time. Now, I'm not going to lessen the amount of contrast medium, oh my god, lessen the amount of medium that I'm going to use. So I want to just apply a second thin layer over the top, because we don't want to block out that lovely metallic that's showing through. So let's just give a little bit of a go over it a second time. Hopefully this time it's going to appear a lot more like what we're after. And it doesn't matter too much that you're kind of going over some of the metallics that need to sort of stay metallic, because we can always just go over them later on once we're done. This is the messy step, and then we can just refine and tweak bits as needed afterwards. So while we are waiting for our second coat to dry, I've just grabbed some of this Corax white, I've just mixed it in with our medium and white scar mixture, just to thin it down a little bit. And I'm just going to go over this shoulder pad and hopefully just try and smooth it out a little bit. And what we can do is that we can just, depending on how brilliant of a white you want it, we could just slap over the top with a nice mixture of the apothecary white contrast paint, perhaps. Just going to thin it down just a little bit. Because this is a base colour, so they tend to be a bit thicker than your layer paints. So I'm going to do that. I'm just going to very carefully go over the faceplate. And any other areas that you want white as well, just go ahead and pick them out. Probably recommend using the Corax whites just because it will go over the majority of other previous colours that you've got on accidentally onto the wrong places, because of course, you know, it's bound to happen unless you're sitting down for a very, very, very long time. Got a bit of white on there, let's get that off. There we go. So it's always handy to have just a brush with a fine tip that's been wetted, just to help remove very quickly any paints that you've got into the wrong areas, and then you do that and there's no dramas, no issues, it's all sorted. So now we're going to move over on to doing some gold trim. So, I mean, what kind of Thousand Sun model would it be without a little bit of gold? So, got here this brass scorpion. It's a nice sort of darker gold that I quite like to use on the majority of my miniatures, at least as like a base colour for my gold. And then from there I can sort of add in brighter golds if I would like. So, we're going to go over the trim of the shoulder pads, and then we can pick out a few other areas if we like. So if it's like a character or a sergeant, then you could do like a knee pad. You could do maybe the kind of the vents on the shoulder, on the shoulder pad, oh goodness, of the backpack. Kind of anything you like really. So I'm going to do the first layer, and then we may need to do a second layer just in case if it is a little bit streaky, but it should be alright on the first go. So while we are using some metallics, we're going to go back over some of the areas that we may have gone a little bit overboard. So kind of this section of the bolt gun here that I've spilt some of the red on. Some of the bits at the back here, kind of the Under Armour areas. I'm just going to go over, pick these areas back out again, and then just help just to tidy up the miniature and finish it all off. Now to add a bit of depth to our gold, so I have this Agrax Earthshade, and I'm going to take this, I'm just going to apply this, just going over the gold trim. The reason why that I use this as opposed to null oil is because the brown of the Agrax Earthshade has a nice warmth to it, and that really helps to complement the warmth of the gold very, very nicely. You can of course use null oil if you wish, it's entirely up to you, but I would just recommend using this one over null oil. So we're going to move on to using some apothecary white. Now I've just had a little notice come up on my phone to say that the phone's getting too hot and the audio, sorry, not the audio, the quality may be reduced. So I do apologise for that. So I'm just going to take this, and then we're going to go over the shoulder pad. So we had to kind of wait until the Agrax Earthshade was dry before we add this on, because of course it's just going to kind of bleed in and it's going to look all weird and horrible. to go over the gun, and of course then the faceplate, and then leave that to dry. Thankfully with this heat, it's taken not an awful lot of time for the apothecary white to dry. So we're just going to take a fine brush, and then we're just going to very carefully paint over the symbol. So thankfully it is raised, so what we can do is, rather than using the very point of your brush, we're going to use the side of the brush, and that way it's going to just help to pick out that raised area, and it means then we're coming in from the correct angle, and there's going to be less chance of this gold going on to our very, very lovely white. So with the rest of the gold, you can, if you wanted to, go back over it with a lighter shade. You could give it a bit of an edge highlight or a dry brush with some silver, just to make it a little bit more weather worn. But do bear in mind that when you do these things, that especially on the infantry, you may need to do this 40, maybe 60 times at least. So try and keep it as simple as you can. It's also why I haven't gone back over the white areas to highlight them, because it's just going to be your bog standard troops, and we want to try and keep this as simple as possible. Same thing with the highlighting for the armor. The contrast paint has done the job of that really, really well, and the same goes with like the recesses as well, which is why it's much preferred to spray it black and then dry brush over the top with your metallics, and that way you don't then have to go back over with any kind of inks, washes, that sort of thing. So I'm going to do the eyes. Now I have a little bit of a sneaky plan to do this. So we're going to take our white. Now the lenses are a lovely green. So I'm going to take our white, and then we are just going to make a teeny tiny incision. Makes me sound like a surgeon. No. I'm just going to try and leave just underneath the eye black. So we're just going to do the top section as best we can. Because of course when you model them like this, it can be quite tricky to paint the other eye lens, but we're just going to try as best we can. But on the plus side, because it is a little bit tucked out the way, if you do make a little bit of a mistake and it's not quite as smooth, no one's really going to notice on the other side. So, because it's quite thin, I'm just going to go back over the front again, and that will do. So, the magic trick will be this Bell Tan green shade. It's fantastic. It's a really lovely dark green. I tend to use this for salamanders, as you don't need to sort of use like Agrax or Null Oil where it's going to be a bit too dark, whereas this is fantastic for salamanders for getting into the recesses. So we're going to use this, and then we're going to very carefully just fill the eye lens just like that. So of course it's going to sink into the recesses, into that kind of black area. It's also then going to turn that white into a nice shade of green. If you have put in a little bit too much, you want it to stand out a bit more, then what you can do is wipe up some excess, go back in, and then the brushes, the hairs will help to draw out any excess wash. And that's how you do it in just 2 simple steps, rather than having to go over it in black and then a darker green, then a lighter green, then the little white bit on the very end. Because of course, again, we want to try and make it as easy as possible for ourselves when painting many of these. So that is a nice trick that you can use not just on the Sons of the Thousand Suns. You can use it on any Legion that has green lenses. You could even obviously get sort of blues, you can get red shades as well, and you can use that for your lenses that way. So it's a really nice quick trick just to get the lenses done. Of course, you can do the more traditional method on characters and that sort of thing, where you will spend a lot more time putting in as much detail as you can. But for now, this will do. And let's go and pop this chap onto the turntable and let's close out this video. And so here we are at the end of the video. So this is how I went about painting 1,000 Suns for your Horus Heresy legions. And the idea that I had in my head has turned out really darn well. You can still see the metallics showing up through the red there. And it's one of those ideas that you think, does it sound good in your head? And in practice, it's absolutely crap. But as it turns out, it's really good. So let me know your thoughts down in the comments below, and not just there as well, but I also have a new Discord server, so you can let me know over there as well. We can have a little bit of a chat discussion. If there's any Thousand Suns players out there, have I done a good job? Let me know either in the comments or at the Discord server linked down below. If you want to pick up some Horus Heresy goodness for yourselves and save yourself a bit of money while also supporting this lovely channel of mine, I have a link for Wayland Games down in the description below. It's an affiliate link, of course, so any orders that you place through there, I get a little bit of a kickback through there as well. It's not much, but it helps. It can buy me a couple of pots of new paint, which I had to do today because of the just absurdly hot temperatures that we're having in the UK at the minute, and a lot of my more crucial paints had dried out into a weird, horrible, pasty mush. So, if you're new, speaking of supporting the channel, if you're new, then hello and thank you for watching all the way to the end. Like this video and subscribe down below because it just makes me smile and it helps, you know, just seeing the numbers going up, it just, yeah, makes me smile and lets me know that what I'm doing is what you guys sort of are after, really. So it gives me a bit of guidance as well, navigating this crazy hobby YouTube malarkey stuff as I do. So there'll also be some stills and reels of this guy over on my Instagram page at Lynch Paints as well. You want to check me out over there as well. I know there's a lot of links and stuff, but it'll all be in the description below, laid out nicely for you to see, click and explore. So I think I'm going to go have a cold shower because it's about 32 degrees Celsius. That's Celsius. My American friends, you say 32 and they're like, oh, that's not too cold. That's not too warm. Yeah, Celsius, 32, pretty damn hot. So gonna have a cold shower. So without further ado, stay safe, stay hydrated, stay beautiful, and we'll see you all next time.